At the beginning of my talks, I always like to do a meditation. So you're welcome to join to do the meditation. I like to do like maybe between 15 to 30 minutes of just sitting in silence. That just floats my boat. I went for a while of telling you different meditations that you could do, but I always feel like it's the same people that are watching, so you maybe don't need the instructions, but maybe it's not. Maybe this is your first time. So maybe I'll give a bit of an intro into meditations that you can do. So so firstly, I don't see meditation as a destination. I was initially taught to meditate when I was involved in a Buddhist group called the Foundation of the Western Buddhist Order. And they taught me two main meditation techniques, the mindfulness of breathing and the metta bhavana. And the metta bhavana was the evoking of compassion, and then that mindfulness of breathing was the concentration of the mind. And I found both of them so profound. You people out there have it so much easier in the sense that you can access this information instantly through typing into YouTube. Whereas when I was spiritually seeking, it was just as the internet was beginning, and it wasn't really something that you could look up on the internet as such. And it never entered my consciousness, the idea of just sitting there and paying attention to your mind. Like this, the mind was me, the mind was who I was. It wasn't something I gave any thought to. If I thought that person's a nasty person, that was reality. That wasn't a mind thinking, that wasn't someone thinking, that was the way it was. So when I went there and they talked about thoughts and the impressions thoughts give, the emotions that thoughts can give, and the experiences that thoughts can give, I just was totally blown away by that notion. It just hadn't really occurred to me that I could question the thinking. The thinking was biological. It was me. It was what came out of my mother's vagina. It was what was created. And I remember the first time I practiced meditating, it was in Islington in North London, in this small Buddhist centre, in this studio, and it was hot. It was the summertime, and I remember the smell of freshly cut grass and that gentle breeze that you get, a gentle warm breeze that you get in the summer. And it was on a main road, I believe, so there was also the sounds of cars and hustle bustle and London life. And we sat in this room, maybe like 30 people in a small room, and we all faced a statue of the Buddha with garlands and candles. It was a gold Buddha. And it was a pine floor and white walls. And I remember sitting there and him explaining, the teacher explaining what to do. And as I shut my eyes and paid attention to my mind, I realized there was a beast inside of me. Not a beast as in something nasty necessarily, but just a beast as in it was wild. I was like a wild dragon, like diving through the skies, like breathing out fire and then riding the winds, diving through the clouds. It was so intense, and I didn't know that before. Isn't that crazy? I didn't know that was happening inside my own body. I thought those thoughts were me. I didn't even know a difference between me and the thoughts. And as I sat there, I realized that the mind was wild. It was totally out of control. And as they explained it, it's like a muscle that you exercise, and if you don't tame it, if you don't practice, then it goes into default. And mine was in default monkey mind. And the first one they taught me was the mindfulness of breathing, which is that you count your breath as you go in and out up to the number 10, and then you start again. And that sounds really simple, but it's actually really difficult, because what happens is you go into automatic and then you end up counting to like 96, and then you're like, oh crap, I meant to be counting, and then you go back again to 0. So you just count 10 breaths and then back to 0, 10 breaths and back to 0. It's so simple. And it's just about training the attention of your mind. And then the other one was called Metta Bhavana. I never teach this meditation to anybody, but at the time it was my favorite out of the two. And I think this was what really compelled me towards Buddhism, was this notion of compassion. And in this meditation, you selected 3 people, one that you really liked, one that you were neutral to, and your enemy, and then the third, your enemy. And then you went through 3 stages of sending them compassion. I can't remember the words exactly. It was like, you imagine that person, so you imagine the person that you really like and you send them goodwill, and then the person that you're indifferent to, and then thirdly, your enemy, and you send them goodwill. And this again was really profound. I remember crying the first time I did it. I mean, how beautiful is that, to sit with other people in a room and be sending your enemy goodwill? I mean, you certainly didn't do that in the Christian church. Maybe it was happening, but I just didn't perceive that at the time. Christianity, if you didn't know, was what I was brought up in. It's what most people are brought up in England. I think it's maybe 60 or 70% the majority. Maybe even 80%. It's either Church of England or Catholic. And then there was more meditations I learned along the way. I really enjoyed Vipassana meditation. This was another one of my favorites. They didn't teach this at the FWBO then to me, but I learnt it with Goenka Vipassana. And this one was body scan, like going through every bit of your body and feeling every bit of your body. And that I found very profound. And then the next one is, I don't know exactly where this one came from, but I know it's what Nisargadatta Maharaj did for 3 years prior to his awakening, is moving your attention continuously to I am. So to me, what I am means is presence. So it's kind of what you're doing when you're counting 1, 2, but it's a very specific part of presence. It's that sense of being. It's that sense of being this. All of these meditations are fantastic for settling down the person, particularly the I am meditation. But the I am meditation takes time, to build to. You need to focus your mind. So sometimes the mindfulness of breathing, the counting the breath, is a good one to start with, because the mind isn't used to the practice of just moving itself back into being. And it's not got much judge or much ropes to hold on to. Some of the teachers teach moving it back into consciousness. I prefer the I am. My teachers were Roger Castillo, Ramesh Balsekar, main teachers. And then Nisargadatta Maharaj wasn't my teacher. I never even studied him, but through Ramesh and through Roger. I read his book once, I think, actually. But through their books, he was very apparent, obviously. So you can pick any of those meditations. It seems like I'm just drifting off into meditation, and we just go for it. Hello. Hello. So here, the Bodhisattva of compassion, when he meditated deeply, he saw the 5 skandhas. Sorry, it just popped up into my head. It's from the Heart Sutra. If you've never read the Heart Sutra before, you should. It's super beautiful. Okay, but back to business. What is the title of the talk?